Welcome in here to a regular season edition of Three True Values. That's right, we are here. The basketball season is upon us. We have watched games, we have tape under our belt, we've seen the players out on the floor. We have teams that have put together records 1 and 0, a couple of 2 and 0s, some 0 and 1s and 0 and 2s along the way as well. But it's Thursday. College basketball is back, and so we are going to break it all down for you right here on the show. I'm your host, James Fletcher. The lineup today includes quite a bit that we're going to get into. Here in the first segment, I want to deep dive a little bit on what was the marquee matchup of day one on Monday. Arizona taking down Florida 93 to 87. We'll get into that. We're going to talk about the top performances. We're going to talk about what it means for the defending champs to start 0 1. How good can this Arizona team be? That and so much more, because there's storylines that are going to come off of that that we're going to touch on along the way as well here in this first segment. In the second segment, we got Parth Upadhyaya of the Daily Memphian. We're going to get you ready for the Memphis Tigers, a program that never has a shortage of interesting stuff going on. He's going to join us and break down their season, which does not start until Saturday. One of the latest starts in college basketball this season. So we're going to get you previewed, ready to go for what could be one of the best non it's one of those hard ones because they're not in a high major conference, but they're clearly not a mid major program. We'll talk about them in that second segment with Parth. And to wrap up today's show, in the third segment, we will get you just a little primer, just get you ready for bracketology. We're just going to broach the subject. We're going to set the table for what we're going to talk about over the rest of the year and get you out of here with the games of the week as we do every week on this show. We get you ready. We're going to take you around the country. We're going to take you to some big time marquee top 10 matchups. We're going to take you also to some mid major teams that we want to check in on, that we want to get a read on before they pop up in March. And we have to decide, do we think they can upset one of the big boys? We'll try to get an early beat on some of those teams as well. So, with all the introductions out of the way, with the lineup behind us, let's get into it. Let's talk about what was the big game this week. We had Arizona taking on Florida. That, of course, happened in Las Vegas at T-Mobile Arena. Arizona walks out of there with a 93-87 victory behind the play of freshman Koa Pete, who had 30.7 rebounds, 5 assists, added 3 steals and a block for 4 stocks, as we call them, steals plus blocks in total. It was an incredible freshman debut from a guy that, if you've listened over the course of the offseason and even in the preseason to what Jamie Shaw and I have said, this is not exactly an unexpected result for one of the most accomplished high school recruits in history. What he did with Team USA, what he was able to do through his high school and AAU careers, Koa Pete has always been right at the top of the list in terms of productivity. And I think that his game translates incredibly well to this level of college basketball. Now, the question, of course, for Koa is going to be what translates to the next level. Very similar in what the conversations are going to be to Cameron Boozer. And so that's going to be the give and take that we find with Koa is he's a power forward, about 6'8", looks to have some vertical pop that he hasn't shown as much throughout the course of his career. Interested to see how that continues to develop, how he keeps building on that. But there's no denying the raw production, what he's going to be able to do, particularly at this level. Could be one of the best freshmen in all of college basketball, even compete with some of those guys who are in the mix for that number one pick slot in the NBA draft this season. He showed that full on in the debut. He can do a little bit of everything. He's going to bruise. He's going to beat you to the spot. He's going to get up and down vertically. I was fascinated though with Florida's strategy because we know that Florida wants to play big. We know that they go with a lot of two big sets. They have, of course, the bodies to do it with Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu. They have Micah Henlogton off the bench and Thomas Hauk as well, who they play at the three now this season. That was something that we kind of knew was coming throughout the offseason. We were interested to follow how it played out, and it played out pretty well. Ends up with 27 points, 4 rebounds, as 2 steals, and a block as well. I think he's primed for an even bigger breakout than we probably anticipated this season. He looked comfortable at that three spot. Now, is he a knockdown shooter yet? No, I don't think that he's at that level, but the mechanics appeared to be pretty repeatable, at least over the course of that game. I thought that he did a pretty good job of not just relying on the perimeter shot. He's still able to make those slashing cuts to the rim that he was as a four. He's still finding the space, even though there's two centers out there. He is able to rotate to the right spot, to make the right move towards the rim, to follow behind as somebody gets into the paint and just find the open space on the floor. He always seems to be in the right spot, rotate into the right area. And what I was most interested in over the course of this game was his ability to draw fouls. And of course, he knocked down a good rate of his free throws in this game. But to have a guy who was putting the ball on the floor a little bit, I was interested to see. It looked like he felt confident getting downhill and knowing that he could draw the foul, could get to the free throw line, or they were going to get out of his way and get to the rim. So he might not have that shiftiness of a lot of threes or even twos who are going to take you off the bounce, but he is so much bigger and he has the athleticism to just force his way to the spot and draw quite a few fouls along the way. So that's the two star performances. We got 30 from Koa Pete. We got 27 from Thomas Hauk. But let's talk about Arizona. Let's break down a little bit of what they got from the rest of the roster because Jaden Bradley had 27. That was huge for them. Bradley, of course, continues to develop, turned into a really, really good college point guard. I think that he's going to be an incredible steadying force for this Arizona team that has a lot to like. I'm really interested to see because we have Krivas anchoring the middle. You heard Koa Pete after the game give him a lot of credit for what he does to kind of create the opportunities that he has over the course of the game. And then you look on the perimeter, Braden Burries, look, he didn't have a very good game, only 3 points, ended up fouling out in 17 minutes. But I still really like his game. I think that he's going to find his way. I think that he's going to contribute more and more as this season goes on. That's going to be scary for some teams if he can find his rhythm and add it to Ivan Karchinkov, who is one of these top international guys who came over, was playing international ball, is the right age to be a freshman. He's not one of these guys who's 21, 22 coming over to play whatever, 1, 2, 3 years, whatever the NCAA grants each of these cases. But 12 points, 10 rebounds, looks like he can really knock down a shot from the perimeter. I thought he held up really well on both ends. I think that he was a home run to add in and just fill a spot in the rotation here. And then the bench for Arizona. We talked about Aristode, another freshman who there's a lot of people interested in his ability to be a 3-and-D type guy. Tobe Awaka on the interior, we know what he is. We've seen him over multiple seasons now. He's going to get on the glass. He's going to compete on the defensive end of the floor. And if you can bring that off the bench, you've got real depth that you can start to unlock. And Anthony Delorso, another guy just on the wing, can knock down a shot, can move the ball around the perimeter, can hold up in different areas on the floor. I really, really was impressed by this Arizona team. I don't think it was fluky at all. I think that this is a team that is going to compete at the top of college basketball this season, barring any injuries, barring any kind of fraying or setbacks along the way. Yes, Koa Pete is going to have some freshman struggles that pop up here or there, different matchups that are going to cause him struggles. Burries obviously already went through that. Aristo didn't provide a whole lot. I'm sure Karchinkov will have his moments as well, but the steadying force of Bradley and Krivas, and then you add in that high potential of the rest of this roster. Look, you've got Awaka and Del Orso still in there that are more steadying forces along the way. We didn't even get to see a couple of their other guys who I think have drawn some intrigue, the international prospects who are on this roster. Really, really good stuff from Arizona. And if you look at the other side for Florida, I'm not concerned, not worried, not gonna hit the alarm just yet. I think that Alex Condon didn't have his best game. Yes, 11-8, but 6 turnovers, ended up with 5 fouls. Not a very Alex Condon game. Um, he still did the same things, but I think that there was some struggle there, particularly because the way Florida chose to guard Koa Pete was interesting. They did not put Thomas Houck on him for most of the game. It ended up being the bigs who had to handle the Arizona freshman. And while you would think potentially a guy who we talk about the physicality, that we talk about being strong and getting to his spots, maybe yes, you should put your bigs on him who he can't push around as much. They're just bigger, they're more mature, been in the college game longer. That didn't seem to be a plan that worked out because you had your two starting bigs both foul out of this game. So interested to see the next time they come up against one of these bigs, because as I said, Koa Pete and Cameron Boozer, there's a lot of overlap in how you're going to want to guard them, the spots that they're going to want to get to that you're going to want to restrict. How does Florida handle that in the future when they play these types of players? I think that Thomas Houck is probably the answer defensively there. Of course, that means you've got to rotate other things. If you're going to play two bigs and you're going to spin your small forward guarding the team's power forward, that's going to leave you with a center who's responsible for somebody on the perimeter. And if the team has a lot of shooters flanking that guy, you can get in trouble really quickly. So it's not an easy fix. It's not something that's one-to-one. But we know, of course, that Florida, over the course of time and in different moments, can also go to a one big set. They can just leave one center out there and sub in a CJ Ingram and a Klausar Brown coming off of the bench. Interested to see what the adjustment is there. Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland in the backcourt, that I have said from day one is going to be my only concern with this Florida team is how does it look together? It was good, I thought. Xavier Lee, of course, 14, 6, and 5. He filled the box score. I thought that he stepped up to the moment. Obviously, coming from the Ivy League, you think that he's going to have an immediate translation, that the skills that he showed there are going to move on to the higher level, but you don't know that for sure until he gets out on the court. I think that he's going to have no problem. It's going to be how they work together. You got two small guards. Lee a little bit more size, but also if you're going to use Lee on the ball, you're talking about Fland at the 2. Now he is a point guard who's being asked to play off the ball and is a small guard. So there's going to be some more of a figuring out process from those guard spots. I don't by any means think that they're in trouble. I think they can figure it out. I think that they can continue to work through those things. It was an encouraging enough start from that backcourt that I do think they can continue forward with it. They can keep working on it and find the best way to use it. But as we talk about this game, there's some things that have clearly popped up here and are going to be conversations over the course of the season. We'll start with freshman impact. Freshmen are going to dominate the conversation this year in college basketball. Koa Pete is not the only freshman we talked about throughout the course of this week. AJ DeBonsa played immediately after this game and had all kinds of attention on what he was able to produce, his ability as a 3 to get downhill, to be involved defensively, to shoot from the perimeter. He showed a little bit of everything, was really impressed with him in his first game. Then we got Darren Peterson. I mean, he's already drawing Kobe Bryant comparisons when you hear people around basketball. Now, that's a very tall task to live up to, but he put in a big scoring effort in the first half for Kansas before being limited in the second half. And that's what if you just go look at the box score, you're going to say 21. You're going to say, okay, that's really good. But we've got guys dropping 30, 25 in the preseason. Boozer had what 24 and 23, I think, in a game. Well, Peterson basically played the first half and still reached that 20-point threshold. He's got so much to unlock in his game. Obviously, you got to overcome the cramping that he had in game one, but we've seen freshmen deal with cramping very often in college basketball. It's not an uncommon thing, particularly guys who are high usage like he is. So, not too worried about that. We saw Cameron Boozer struggle in his debut. And when I say struggle, I mean, it was one of the worst games that I have seen him play. He really was not quite aggressive enough with the ball in his hand, didn't get to the rim, didn't get to his spots the way that he needed to. And then he turned it on just a little bit in the second half, helped Duke pull away to win the game, and ended up with a double double, like a solid. I mean, I think it was 15 and 13 by the end of things. If 15 and 13 is the worst game you've ever played, you are an incredible basketball player. So how's that going to develop over the course of the season? Obviously, those are the big names. We're still watching Mikal Brown. We're watching Chris Sinak at Houston, who looked really good. Caleb Wilson had 20 plus in his debut at North Carolina, was really efficient getting to that as well. There is just going to be no shortage of freshmen who are going to draw the spotlight in this college basketball season. It's going to be the talk of the sport. The other thing that's going to draw a lot of attention is the international prospects. We talked about a few of them. Karchinkov, of course, one who came over this year to join the college game. Look, some people are for it, some people are against it. The idea that they've played professionally before rubs some people the wrong way. Some people argue, well, we've got these AAU circuits, we've got now the Nike Scholastic stuff. Like these guys are going to prep schools, all kinds of things that aren't exactly your typical local high school basketball. So it's an interesting debate. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I think that it's good for the sport to get as many of the top prospects as we can into one spot. So I'm generally in favor of having these guys, particularly the younger ones, come to the college game, get some experience so that we can compare what they perform like to the American prospects coming up through the system more easily than a guy who's coming off the bench for a really good team playing against a bunch of grown men. It's a little bit harder to gauge his 5 points and 3 rebounds than it is when he puts up 12 points and 8 rebounds in the college game. Just a different type of game as well, different rules even in that setting. And finally, the last thing that I think is going to be big over the course of the year is the importance of veteran guards. We saw it with Jaden Bradley. We saw it with Xavier Lee. You need to have some experience. Somebody who has been there and done that, running the team, if you want to be one of the top teams in college basketball. That's just how I feel. I know that there's going to be some really talented freshmen. We just talked about them. I think that they're the most important thing here. But I do think you're going to have to complement that. And if you look around the country, the top freshman guards, I mean, Darren Peterson is surrounded with Melvin Council, El Marco Jackson, other guys in that Kansas backcourt who have been in the game for a long time. Even at Arkansas, where it looks like it's Acuff and Thomas, DJ Wagner has been the undersized 5-star guard playing under John Calipari as a freshman. He knows what that's like. He's going to be an anchor for those guys, I think, along the way. It's going to be interesting. It's going to keep playing out over the full course of the season. And we're going to keep breaking it down right here on 3 True Values. When we come back on the other side, we'll have Parth Upadhyaya from the Daily Memphian breaking down all things Tigers in the American Conference. Welcome back in here on 3 True Values. We got Parth Upadhyaya from the Daily Memphian joining us. He is covering all things Memphis basketball. Never a dull moment on that beat, Parth. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking some time early in the season. You have a late start to things. Still haven't tipped off the season officially, but we've seen some preseason action. We've gotten some quotes from the coach, from the
Yeah.
players, and like I said, never a dull moment. Plenty to talk about here.
No, so much to unpack. We were just talking about it before we hit record here, obviously. Appreciate you having me on. Always great to catch up with you, man. But yeah, no regular season game until Saturday at 2 p.m. against San Francisco at home at FedEx Forum. Uh, they played two exhibitions, obviously, against top 20 opponents. And it's not really a matter of what the results of those exhibitions were, right? Because if you recall last year, Memphis lost its two exhibitions also against North Carolina and Alabama and
Right.
had a great season. But it's more so like kind of the way in which the Tigers lost and the unpacking, if you will, um, of what's come after that in terms of Penny's assessment, players' assessment hasn't been the most promising, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess we'll start and we'll get into a little bit of everything here as we go through it. But I want to start on the difference between last year's team and this year's team, because last year's team, I think most of the season we kind of thought was going to be uh, at least have a chance at the at large resume. And that started at the top with PJ Haggerty, who they were able to bring in. And there was no question. He was the offense. And then Dane Danger in the front court was kind of option number two. There was such a clear pecking order. This year, while you bring in an Aaron Bradshaw and a Doug McDaniel, who you would ideally kind of just say, all right, slot them into those roles. There's a Sincere Parker as well. Curtis Givens comes into the fold. And then even Abdul Hakim. There's a lot of guys who have put up numbers at different places, different levels,
Yep.
and now everyone's got to find their spot in the pecking order. We've seen penny teams like that before. It's difficult to manage. Uh, how has that gone so far from what you've seen, from what you've heard, trying to find out what everyone's role is?
No, I think it has been difficult on Penny and his staff. In fact, today, when Penny spoke to us media members earlier at about 11 or 12, he said that he didn't have a starting five picked out for Saturday's game, nor did he have a regular rotation kind of in mind, right? And the main thing he pointed to was in his mind a lack of effort from his key guys, and he basically said that the guys that are giving him the tenacity, the grit, the hustle that he wants to see, that he desires, are guys who are less talented, right?
Mhm.
They're not the he didn't name any names, but they're not the guys that we can expect to be the focal points of this basketball team. And I think another issue is, all offseason you've heard from Penny and from others, like just the depth of this team, right? That it may not be as top heavy in terms of talent. There may not be a PJ Haggerty, it may not be a David Jones or a Kendrick Davis, but 1 through 15, Penny said this is the second most talented roster that he's had in his 8-year tenure. Well, the issue with that is when you've got a bunch of guys who are kind of clustered together, right, in terms of ability, talent, skill set, whatever it may be, it's hard to differentiate them. It's hard to put guys in a tier one category. Hey, it's these are the alphas, if you will. These are the role players. These are the reserves, whatever it may be. Um, it's just not as clear. It's not a cookie cutter fit in terms of who goes where. Whereas last year, like you said, PJ Haggerty, he had scored 20 points per game before in the American Conference, right? Same
Mhm.
conference, you're bringing him in. He's going to be your bucket getter. Tyrese Hunter had orchestrated offenses before that had been to the NCAA tournament multiple times. I think he had been to March Madness, I believe, all three seasons before he
Yep.
got to Memphis. So that was, something that was encouraging. Dane Danger, obviously untapped potential that Penny did tap into, but just played a completely different position, occupied a different space on the court than those other two guys. Colby Rogers, a 40% career 3-point shooter. So you had guys that had kind of been there, done that, were proven, and didn't really overlap, right?
Mhm.
Whereas this year, not only have you've got unproven commodities like Aaron Bradshaw, who's still trying to figure it out, still trying to make good on that potential, that 5-star, future lottery pick potential. Um, Sincere Parker, another one of those guys who has shown the ability to get buckets, but really hasn't done it on as big of a stage as Memphis, nor in as big of a role as Penny
Yep.
is asking him to play. And then Doug McDaniel trying to bounce back from a rough season, quite frankly, that he had at Kansas State and trying to return to Michigan form, where he was pretty efficient, even though that team didn't go to the tournament. Uh, and on top of all that, you've got just a bunch of wings, right? Like you've
Yeah.
got Zach Davis, Hassan Abdul Hakim. That list kind of goes on and on of guys that take up the same space on the court, and that's where it gets difficult, I think.
Right. And earlier, as you mentioned, there was talk from Penny, from the players. Quante Berry spoke on it. Just this need to nip things in the bud was the quote that stood out to me. And
It's
um,
the preseason, man. What are we
right,
nipping in the bud? You know?
while you don't want something starting that early, if you can nip it in the bud, if you can end it that quickly, that would suggest to me that that they're establishing a pecking order, that that's what that was about. Because if it's off court stuff, we've seen that before, and it can fray the team quickly if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, off court stuff coupled with just the lack of clear pecking order, clear rotation, that can derail a season really, really quick. And in Memphis's case, I know Penny's been kind of roasted on social media and stuff for saying this in previous seasons, but the idea that the Tigers season is from now until December 31st is not really that crazy of an idea, right?
No.
Because if they're going to build a an at-large resume, it's going to be before the new year, right? It's going
Right.
to be
As on
when
three's bracketologist, like that's just a fact. There's no
exactly.
question. Anything they do after January is only going to drop them in my numbers. There's no way they can earn their way up the board from that point in the season.
Absolutely. So after December 31st, all you can do is stub your toe, aside from that one game against Utah State and Logan on Valentine's Day, right? That's that
Right.
one opportunity, depending on how Utah State fares until that point, to get a marquee win. Um, but what I'm trying to say is, I guess that leaves just no time. Like you've got to be ready to go now. And that was the whole point of Penny again getting all of his guys, not all of them, but 11 to the 15 certainly, on campus, early June for the whole duration of the 8-week summer workout period. Um, so to kind of get all that, follow that timeline that worked so well last year, and to not see it deliver in terms of cohesion and chemistry is,
Mhm.
concerning.
Yeah, for sure. On the other hand, though, we look at the depth, and it's depth that will get you through the American. There's no doubt about it.
For
Uh,
sure.
just the names here, the brand power, the established production that they have had at whatever level it was, should be enough to get you through that American schedule. The problem is that, like you mentioned, as Penny has stressed, as I just kind of backed up there, you have to be successful in the non conference schedule. After that, if you don't build an at large resume over the first half of the season, you're talking about getting the automatic bid from this conference by winning the tournament. And
Correct.
now there have been other teams that you could be afraid of over the years. Of course, Houston gone, SMU gone, FAU had a run, of course, where you were concerned about your matchup against them. This year, though, it's South Florida. Brian Hodgson has a team that the computers are going to love, that is going to play at a level of intensity. I mean, Memphis fans got to see it when they played against Arkansas State. He is no joke as a coach, and the players that he has brought in there are at a level that is not quite as good or as deep as Memphis, but they can catch you, and you cannot afford to get caught if you don't build the at-large resume early in the season.
No, for sure. And there's a very human component to this too, right? Like you go through the 12 games, and let's say you don't build that at large resume, but even, you come out of that 12 games sitting at, with the way they played in the preseason, I don't think 5-7 is that much of a exaggeration or a reach
Right.
to predict, right? 5-7, 6-6, whatever it may be. Does your team check out, before the new year even comes? And if that's the case, you're looking at much more than, two losses that they had last year through that 18 game conference slate. You're looking at 3, 4. And, obviously all of that snowballs um, to March. And
Mhm.
and how do you get a team that's taken that many bumps up for 3 games in 3 days, 2 games in 2 days, whatever it may be, to get that automatic bid? That's also tough.
Yeah, and we've seen it before, not just with this Memphis team, but we have seen it before at Memphis, where it's hard to get them up night in and night out in the American slate if there's not a passionate fan base in the stands every night. And
Yep.
you've been in the Memphis market long enough, and I've grown up in that market. Those fans, look, they are passionate fans, but sometimes their silence is as loud as their cheering. And when they feel like the team isn't worth paying, they're not heading down to FedEx Forum. That's just a fact. And coaches have complained about it. They've tried to um, combat against it, but it's a reality of that market that it's a late arriving crowd sometimes. But more than that, it is a crowd that is going to let you know in no uncertain terms how they feel about where you're at.
No doubt, no doubt. And even 2 years ago, where that season just went off the rails entirely, like there was enough there to keep that fan base
Yeah.
engaged, right? Like that Tigers team was ranked 10th in mid-January. They had done pretty well through a non-conference slate that, yeah, those teams didn't hold up their end of the bargain, but on paper it looked good at the time, right? Now, if we're talking about, whatever the worst case scenario is here, which is 5-7, 6-6, whatever, through this rigorous non-conference slate, like, not only like you said, do you have your team potentially checking out, but you've got the fan base checking out too. That's just a bad combination.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, though, they'll be able to get through all of that. Hopefully, you have a fun season to cover because, look, when Memphis basketball is at its best, it is incredibly fun to keep up with. Like I said, those fans, the same way that they will check out, I mean, they will tune in and they will be there
No doubt.
if things get rolling. Same with just that city in general has a different feel to it when there's good basketball being played. So, wishing you the best in this season as you cover it, and of course that team as they get rolling. Looking forward to seeing what happens.
Appreciate it, man.
Welcome back in here. I want to thank Parth Upadhyaya of the Daily Memphian once again for coming on the show. Always get a lot of insight when we talk to him about the Memphis program. As we keep rolling through here in this final segment, we're going to wrap up the show by just touching briefly on the bracketology picture. Obviously, today is more of a crash course on what we're looking for than it is an actual picture of where teams stand because the preseason bracketology, which I put out a couple of weeks ago, that of course is centered a lot on preseason data. The projections that people have for the season combines those into an algorithm that will then tell you where people are projected to finish. We don't yet have enough data to really collect and have any kind of serious conversation about this team moving up or this team moving down from whatever we thought they were before the season started just a few days ago. So, what I want to talk about with bracketology is first off, I want to kind of walk through some of the top teams from that preseason bracketology, the teams that the numbers really like entering the season. Of course, you have Houston, you have Purdue, you have defending champs Florida in the mix, and Duke. That rounds out your one seed line there. And it's really not particularly close in terms of the numbers of anyone cracking that group for what you project. Of course, that takes into account Kim Pom, Torvik, all of the metrics that are out there. People have asked me before about what I use to calculate bracketology. It's a unique blend of a lot of things. Obviously, uh, my own ability to sort through the teams comes into it as well. But there is an algorithm, and it does weight a lot of different analytic numbers um, and numbers that directly reflect how the season has gone for each team. In the preseason, though, it's a lot more of the projective stuff. It's almost only the projective stuff. And so you've got to pull from a couple of different sources and get an accurate kind of picture of where teams stand. Those are the top teams entering the year. There's no question about it. Houston, with their incoming freshmen to complement what they bring back off of last year's Final Four team. You look at Florida, of course, bring back the front court. They've got to replace a back court, but they bring back a lot of production. You look at Purdue, which brings back Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman Wren, adds Oscar Clough and Omer Meyer. We've talked at length about them during the preseason. A lot to like about each of these teams. And then Duke, of course, brings in the number one recruit in the country, brings in Dame Sarr from overseas, another collection of five-star prospects to surround their kind of key anchor piece that they want to build things around. John Shire, we've talked also pretty pretty in depth about the system he wants to use, the link that he wants across the court, the combination of skills that he values. But I saw something interesting that I wanted to take a little bit of a moment to break down in the early days of this season. And it's this idea that there's teams out there, programs out there, coaches, athletic departments, whatever you want to say, whoever you want to assign the mentality to. But there are teams out there that are no doubt looking to boost their analytic numbers, whether it's early in the season or late in the season, by winning the right games at the right time in the right way. And Iowa State has become a poster child for this over recent years. Go face a quad four team, beat them by 80 points, because facing a team that's at the top of quad four or the bottom of quad four doesn't matter for your resume. Quad four is quad four. Even a quad three team that you can beat by 10, 15 points doesn't boost your numbers as much as if you beat a quad four team by 80 points. So play the right team at the right time. And by that, I mean that Iowa State understands late in the season, they're going to have quad one, quad two, quad one, quad two. That's what the schedule is going to look like. They play in the Big 12. They have the opportunity to build up their top end resume at that time. But in the meantime, they want to be as high up the list as they can get. And you can call it whatever you want. It's smart. It's playing the game that you're being told to play here. And another team that I've seen people, not just this year, but in the past as well, that we've talked about on this show, Gonzaga. There's always a conversation of why do the analytics love Gonzaga? Well, because Gonzaga schedules incredibly aggressive early. Gonzaga will go out and play teams that even if they lose, it doesn't knock them in the analytics, because if anything, the analytics thought they were going to lose that game by 8 points. So when you lose by 4 points, while it's a loss in the record, and that matters in a big way, to the computer, which does not sort result A versus result B, it is on a continuum. When it sees that you were supposed to lose by 8, you only lost by 4, it counts that as a positive result a lot of times. Like I said, losses carry weight for sure. But if you were projected to lose by 8, you lose by 4, that indicates to the computer that you're better than it thought, that you deserve more credit than previously given. And then, of course, when you win those games, it just moves you so high so quick that then over time, when everyone else is building their resume up towards where yours is, you can then do the inverse of what I just talked about with Iowa State. You play in the West Coast Conference and you just win games by 40, by 30, 40 again in these quad two, a lot of quad three opportunities. Teams that can't really touch you, as long as you pull away the way that you're supposed to, according to the computer, you're going to sit where you are in the season. Now, we talked about it a little bit with Parth in that last segment. Memphis, in a similar position, they're attempting to schedule the same way that a Gonzaga would. Now, Gonzaga has kind of built this up over years and years and years. So Memphis, if they get caught a couple of times, if they don't overachieve what they're supposed to according to the computers, it can knock them down the board. It can make it more and more difficult for them in that non-conference where you have to now win those games by 20 points in order to get the computers to come back around to you and understand that maybe you were supposed to lose by that much early in the season, but that you're now rounding in and you are performing at a higher level. There's a lot that goes into this, a lot that will play out over the course of the season. Of course, we don't get our first net rankings until December 1st. So we've got a month here of basketball of data to collect before we even get a real look at the NCAA's official metric that they love to look at. As that comes closer, as we get more results under our belt, we'll be able to talk way more intelligently, way more in depth about the one seeds. We'll talk about locations that you can host. We'll talk about the bubble, of course, throughout the entirety of the season. We'll even talk a little bit about some automatic bids and what to expect there, where some teams can move up and down the board over the course of the year. Right here on Three True Values, we're going to do that every other week. Every other week, alternating with that, we're going to do kind of a mailbag third segment. Submit your questions, whatever it is that's on your mind, whatever we haven't talked about on the show. Of course, questions about anything related to college basketball. We're willing to answer them right here on Three True Values. But before we get you out of here, we got to get you through the games of the week as we do each and every week. We're going to start here Thursday night. We've got Texas A&M against Texas Southern. Buckyball is officially underway there in College Station. So we're going to tune in and watch a little bit of that. It's really fun basketball to watch. You're not going to want to miss it. On Friday, we've got our biggest game so far. Florida and Arizona was incredible. It, of course, was a great basketball game, but you can't beat the blue blood brands of Kansas and North Carolina facing off. We also get Darren Peterson against Caleb Wilson, two of the top freshmen in the country going at it with their supporting cast backing them up. Really interested to see the front court matchup between Flory Badunga and Henry Vesar as well. On Saturday, we have Arkansas versus Michigan State. There were quite a few games to pick from on this slate. So if you can get away from the college football for just a little while, be sure to check out what's happening in that Arkansas-Michigan State game. Of course, a Tom Izzo team facing John Calipari. That's big-time news anytime it happens. And those freshmen at Arkansas, huge debut, combined for 43 points between the backcourt duo of Acuff and Thomas. Can they repeat that against a team that we know is going to do everything they can to get them off of their spots, force them into more inefficient looks? On Sunday, we're going to Baylor against Washington, two teams that are outside the top 25 right now. But man, I like them. I think that they're both borderline in that conversation. I think that they're both right now teams that you have to take very serious in the NCAA tournament conversation. Hans Steinebeck, we talk about Tunde Yasufu, a lot of guys on both sides of that matchup that I really like and think could have big seasons this year. On Monday, we're going Iowa State against Mississippi State. We just talked a little bit about Iowa State, and this is one of their opportunities in the non-conference schedule to build the resume. Can they go out, take care of business against Mississippi State? We'll see. Their trio looks really good. The Jefferson, Momcilovic, Lipsy kind of just continue. Feels like they've played together now for so many years that they've really got some chemistry unlocked and should be a real threat. Mississippi State on the other side, it's the Josh Hubbard show. There's no question about it. What can he do going head-to-head against Lipsy, one of the best perimeter defenders in college basketball? Going to be a challenge for him for sure. And on Tuesday, there was nowhere else to go here. I know there's some other good games, but Kentucky and Louisville are playing a big time rivalry being played early in the season this year. You just can't miss it. You can't miss a Kentucky versus Louisville game, much less one that's a top 10 matchup. It's Mikel Brown against the Jasper Johnsons, Malachi Morenos. Really interesting, just up and down the board. Everything you could want out of that game, you're going to get it. And then on Wednesday, we're going Minnesota and Missouri. How about that? A really interesting non-conference game to be scheduled. Nico Medved and his Minnesota team, a lot of new faces there, all getting kind of accustomed to playing together. Cade Tyson looked really good in his first game there after what was a unquestionably down year at North Carolina last season. Missouri, though, brings in Anthony Robinson and Mark Mitchell to the fold. We'll see who can get the upper hand in that one. That could be an interesting one to track as we continue to talk about the bubble throughout the course of the season. Which team can get the win there? Who gets that resume boost? And a head to head win against another team that could very well be in the mix throughout the season. Thanks for tuning into this first episode of the season on Three True Values. We look forward to sticking with you throughout the whole season. So please like, subscribe, share it with your friends, anyone who loves college basketball. Keep them locked in here on Three True Values. I'm your host, James Fletcher, and we will be back next week with plenty more content.